world is full of strange unknowns. Oddities abound. Secrets and cover-ups are everywhere. Ghosts, spirits, cryptids, and all creatures of the night are waiting to give you a fright. Fear not. Through light and fire we will expose them to the light. Welcome to the Dragon's Nest. Here is your host, Will Lindsay.
Hey everybody out there in podcast land, welcome back to episode 7 of the Dragon's Nest podcast. With my beautiful co-host as always, Miss Karen Lindsay. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful, Mr. Will. How are you?
We having a good night tonight. We went and seen Split. Just got back from seeing that at a Ovation Cinema Grill, which was very, very nice. Enjoyed it very much. How about you?
Oh, I loved it. Loved the movie. A lot of people, I hear that it got some bad ratings, but any of you psych majors out there would absolutely love it.
I thought that he did a great job playing about 24 different personalities.
Yeah, he did. He did an amazing job and was very realistic to life on how people with DID actually work, and he's like that. Now, when the body morphing kind of happened, that was a little bit off, but still, there have been...
It was an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yeah, but it was really cool that he did take into fact that a lot of DID cases have where one personality has one feature, whereas another personality will have another feature. As far as like one of them might be right-handed and another one may be left-handed. One may need glasses and the other one doesn't. And he pulled that off really well in the storytelling.
Well, and it's interesting that the brain is such an organ that it can actually rewrite a person and just separate them into multiple personality disorder is DID, essentially. If people don't really know what dissociative identity disorder is, it's multiple personality disorder. But, there's all these, like you were saying about left hand, right hand, when they're in the different personalities, and they write just as good left-handed as they do right-handed when they're in the different personalities. And there's also evidence that shows that one identity from some people might have to wear glasses and can't see very well, but they're truly 20/20 vision when they're in their normal.
Right. Well, I
shouldn't say normal, but
they've also showed where, like some of the personalities have medical conditions, whereas the other ones don't. Things like asthma, like one of the personalities may have asthma, whereas when they're in their host, when they're in, their regular personality.
They're born person.
Yeah, exactly. They've never had asthma. So, it's very weird how that
the brain
can happen.
Is essentially altering their chemistry to some degree.
It's very cool.
And of course, in this M. Night Shyamalan movie, I don't want to ruin it for anybody who's seen it, but by the end of the movie, the brain extremely alters the physiology of the body, and he almost becomes something completely different.
Right.
That's kind of the twist, but...
Well, it is a twist, but as we have shown in a lot of our previous podcasts, that people sometimes have superhuman strength and you can't explain it. We've talked about how, people have said that they're possessed, or, we may classify them as just plain crazy, but yet for some reason they can show these superhuman abilities where, they can withstand cops, blazing them with bullets, or, be able to pick up like a car or something like that. So it's, again, the human brain is an amazing organ that can make your body do very extreme things.
Maybe M. Night Shyamalan in his movie Split was actually coming up with the Dogman.
Ooh.
Which is what we're going to be talking about tonight here on the Dragon's Nest.
Nice lead way.
That's why I thought you'd like that. But no, he didn't turn into a dog. He didn't turn into a werewolf. He didn't turn into any of these things you might associate the Dogman with.
Still, nonetheless.
It was really interesting. I enjoyed it quite. I suggest anybody who's interested in, like Karen was saying, psychology a little bit. It was very fun to delve into these different personalities that he had.
Yes.
It's very much a thriller. as all M. Night Shyamalan movies kind of are, and with twists and turns built into them. But we are going to talk about Dogman tonight, and we went to the Victory of Light Psychic Festival in Sharonville, Ohio, back in November, and during that we attended a conference with the North American Dogman Project, led by Jody Cook and, I apologize, David Jones. David Jones is basically his tech guy, and Jody Cook has written many, many, many books on dogmen and cryptids and everything that pretty much walks on two legs, but no one really has seen except for they're out in the woods. And Jody's latest book is entitled Werewolf Encounters with the Black Dog. You can buy that on Amazon. I can put up a link on our Twitter page and Facebook page. And if you haven't visited our redesigned webpage, I encourage you to go to the dragonsnestpc.com and see what we've done there. It's another way to keep track of what's going on here at the Dragon's Nest and the news articles that we cover here. But his Jody Cook's new book, Werewolves Encounters with the Black Dog, it came out July 31st of last year, and he has written many, many books. But we'll get to him right after paranormal news. So the first story we're going to cover tonight is I wanted to talk a little bit, in our New Year's Eve show, we talked about predictions for 2017. And we went through a lot of numerology. We went through all the actors' deaths, and not just actors, but famous people in general. And there was a lot of people who died in 2016.
Right.
But one of the things I didn't have a chance to cover, and I wanted to, and I forgot, was a story about the Catholic Church. And this is an article called The Blood Miracle of St. Januarius Gennaro. And apparently they do this ritual several times a year. And during this ritual, the blood of the saint, and it looks like it's in a rattler. That's the only way I can describe what it looks like it's in, but it's dried blood inside this rattler. Well, during this ritual that they perform, it turns back into a liquid. And if it doesn't turn into a liquid, it has had some foreboding news every time that it didn't do it. I'm going to go ahead and read the article, and then we can talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
This is from the miraclesofthechurch.com. And then, as I said, it's entitled Blood Miracle of St. Januarius Gennaro. The liquefaction of the blood of St. Januarius is an extraordinary miracle of the Church that has been occurring up to 18 times each year for the past 600 years. It is only one of a number of blood miracles that have taken place, and in the case of St. Januarius Gennaro and others, are still taking place with blood that was collected soon after the death of certain martyrs. There is well-documented history of these samples of blood liquefying at various times each year, especially on the saints' feast days. This practice of gathering blood for relics, admittedly a somewhat surprising religious practice, nevertheless was a common practice beginning in the days of persecution when the early Christians soaked cloths in the blood shed by martyrs, or, if possible, actually collected the liquid in flasks to keep it as devotional items. In the catacombs, these flasks were buried with the dead. Their discovery indicated that the person had died a martyr. Throughout the centuries, blood has been collected from holy persons recently deceased, especially martyrs for the faith, with the specimens being carefully kept with devotion and veneration.
So I'm curious, real quick, what would make someone a martyr or a saint, as that they would want to?
Well, essentially, a martyr in and of itself means they died for their belief. So they were murdered, they were killed. Something happened that they died in order to be a martyr.
Okay.
Sainthood, however, you have to have 3 different miracles associated to you. There has to be this canonical investigation with lots of proof that these miracles actually took place, meaning there's many, 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 many witnesses, not just Joe Blow down the street going, "Yep, I saw that shit turn to blood. I did. Never seen nothing like it in my life."
Oh no. Will's accents are back.
But yeah, so there has to be a lot of witnesses.
Okay.
And of course, I think you reach there's levels of sainthood, first starting with venerated. I believe that's the first level. I could be wrong about this. Don't take my word on it. But as they find more and more proof, then they can be canonically listed as a saint. Canonically listed. These samples have been known to liquefy under various circumstances at different seasons of the year, in various countries and in various ways. Many samples still display wonderful reactions in our day, one of which, that of St. Januarius. While it is scientifically known that blood once removed from the body soon coagulates and eventually spoils, And since this natural reaction was common knowledge among the medical faculty of the Middle Ages, a claim made by them of remarkable liquefaction can hardly be ignored and would seem to indicate a transcendence of their experience. And in our own day, the specimens that are still active are no less scientifically inexplicable than they were centuries ago, even amidst intense scientific investigation. The best known and most intensely studied is the yearly blood miracle of St. Januarius that occurs in Naples each year. The recurring miracle of liquefaction of his blood 18 times a year is often reported in the secular as well as the religious press, and is the occasion of great gatherings in the cathedrals of Naples. Here the people pray fervently, while the resident cardinal, who usually presides over the ceremony, holds the vials of blood. The miracle occurs when the bust, reliquary, containing the head of the saint is brought near. When the liquefaction is accomplished in full view of the spectators, the cardinal announces the miracle has happened. Words that cause great rejoicing and the chanting of the Te Deum. The saint's history begins with the Roman Emperor Diocletian, whose prosecution during the dawning years of this 4th century made martyrs of innumerable Christians. Among his victims was counted St. Januarius. The bishop was soon arrested together with several ministers who had labored beside the saint in the service of the church. After their decapitation, the bodies were removed to various cities. St. Januarius' body was taken to Benevento, then to Monte Vergine, and lastly to Naples, where it was entombed in the main church of the city, with 2 vials of his blood that had been collected by devout followers. Around the tomb, the great cathedral was constructed. Here Januarius was honorably remembered by the faithful of the city. In the 14th century, there occurred a phenomenon that was to attract curiosity throughout the centuries until even today. The happenings provoke worldwide interest. The year was 1389. A procession was making its way about the cathedral, and the priest, holding flasks containing the saint's coagulated blood, noticed that the contents began to liquefy and bubble. Since then, the blood has repeated the phenomenon 18 times each year. On the Saturday before the first Sunday in May, and the 8 days following, on the feast of the saint, September 19th, and during the octave on December 16th. In more recent years, the liquefaction and viewing have taken place 3 times a year: on September 19th, the feast day of the saint, December 16th, which is the anniversary of the eruption of Vesuvius in 1631, and on the first Sunday in May, which commemorates the translation of the relics to Naples. The blood has failed to liquefy several times, each time coinciding with the outbreak of disease, famine, war, or political suppression. It is for this reason the Neapolitans rejoice at each liquefaction. So essentially, they're just afraid when this dried blood of this dead saint does not liquefy. They take it as an omen of bad things to come.
So, question: is the blood actually dry? Is it all dried up and then becomes liquid during these times?
Yes.
So
it's
it doesn't
dry to the bottom, and then suddenly it's like liquid.
So it doesn't just stay liquid year long.
No, you can before the procedure starts, it's actually dried, and in the cases of these bad omens, it never liquefies. It's just dried in there.
Very interesting. I'm just kind of wondering, and of course, I'm trying to think outside the box of, and it very well may be a miracle, but trying to think of something scientific that could cause something like that. And unfortunately, I'm not a biology major or a science major, so I was just wondering, what you thought about it, and as far as, would it have anything to do with maybe, the seasons, or, if something is more humid, if it's a more humid time than another, or maybe rain got into it, or, something. I mean, like I said, I couldn't come up with a logical explanation on my own, but I'm just wondering if there could be one that would make that happen.
Well, according to this article, no. Science is inexplicably unable to explain it.
A lot of 4 and 5 syllable words you're using tonight.
So it goes on to say, when the liquefaction occurs, dreaded occurrences are not expected to take place, and this gives vent to great rejoicing and notices in many secular presses throughout the world. Out in the evening, the reliquary is put into a silvery case and placed inside the altar, where the next day the blood might be found coagulated, or it may be found in a liquid state and might retain so in that liquid state for days or months. Every possible argument has been presented by skeptics, but all have been dismissed in a view of the contrary reactions of the blood whose liquefaction occurs under the most diverse circumstances and physical conditions. The phenomenon has no need of special conditions to verify itself. For example, the liquefacions occur at different temperatures, as indicated by the records kept for more than a century, as we all know that the Catholic Church is great at keeping records. That's the Roman nature. And by the studies of Professors Pergolo, Punzo, and Sperandeo, definitely Italians,
Sperandeo,
who concluded that there is no direct relation between the temperature and the time or the manner of the liquefaction. The blood may liquefy at temperatures of 77 degrees or higher, with the phenomenon taking as much as 20 to 40 minutes, while a smaller amount of time may be required when the temperature is 15 degrees or less. Those reluctant to admit the supernatural quality of the happenings have argued that the press of the spectators, the lights and the candles on the altar, or the warmth of the priest's hands have helped in producing the reheating which encourages the liquefaction. Since the miracle occurs several times each year in various seasons, and since the blood is protected by layers of glass, and since there is no constant point at which liquefaction takes place, the miracle is contrary to every physical law that exists regarding the temperatures needed to liquefy the substance. Likewise, there have been occasions when the blood has failed to liquefy under apparently ideal circumstances. The theory of heat or the lack of it affords no adequate explanation of the phenomenon observed. After the liquefaction, the blood frequently presents a variation in volume, since at times it decreased, while at other times it almost doubles, and it doesn't necessarily return to its original volume. Sometimes the coagulated blood occupies half the vial, while at other times it occupies almost the entire space of the vial. A truly mystifying condition exists with regard to its weight. In experiments conducted in 1902 and 1904, the reliquary was weighed in a delicate balance. It was discovered that its weight was no more constant than its bulk. That is, its weight might increase as much as 25 grams, thereby defying physical laws. The strangest element is that there is often an increase in weight when the mass actually decreases, and a decrease in weight when the volume increases. This is in direct opposition to the laws that dictate an increase in weight with a corresponding increase in mass. The color of the coagulated blood changes from dark rouge, almost black, to a bright vermilion that appears opaque when held to a light. Its viscosity changes as well. Sometimes the mass is almost gummy, at other times fluid, and it is independent of any movement that occurs to the reliquary. Some of the truly remarkable conditions that scientists could not explain was why the blood sometimes forms tiny bubbles that rise to the surface and collect into a foam, nor why, when it bubbles, it becomes a crimson color, while at other times the color of the liquefied material is dull and its movement sluggish. Skeptical scientists from time to time have attempted to reproduce a liquid with similar characteristics by the mixture of various chemicals, but they have consistently failed to produce something that not only changes from a solid to a liquid form, but also changes its weight, volume, and color. Unable to disqualify the miracle with arguments of scientific nature, some have grasped elsewhere, even offering the improbable explanation that the blood is affected by some form of psychic force, that concentration and will of the expectant crowd are held responsible for producing the physical action that their minds and wills demand, is dismissed since the liquefaction has often happened unexpected and in the presence of only a few spectators. While scientists have been unable to explain how the phenomenon can be accounted for, the mysterious liquefaction of the blood of St. Januarius that has occurred for almost 600 years remains a challenge to the skeptic, a mystery to the scientist, and a truly inspiring miracle to the believer. But in December of 2016, the blood failed to liquefy, and so people are afraid that that now means that there is an omen to come.
It was Donald Trump.
Coming year. Could be Donald Trump. Could be world events.
Sorry.
But I wanted to give that during our prediction show. But I wanted to talk about that during our prediction show, and I completely just skipped over the article and forgot. But, you know, miracles of the church and the saints have been around forever. You know, the Virgin Mary has showed herself. The Fatima mysteries, which some people still don't know the final Fatima mysteries, what they mean to the world. Some say only the Pope knows the answers to those things. You know, there's a lot of church mysteries, and I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. It's interesting because, I mean, everything that I was thinking, like temperature or conditions or weather, or maybe it's the time of the year, And of course, as soon as I said it, then the very next page just disproved everything I was thinking. So it's very, very interesting. I mean, but...
Well, if we ever find ourselves in Naples, we'll have to go.
Yes.
During the right time of year so we can see this blood miracle for ourselves.
Of course, it says can take days or, I mean...
Well, another interesting fact that maybe non-Catholics don't really realize is that in all of the Catholic churches, that they have in their cornerstone of their altar, they have a piece of a saint. It could be a knuckle, it could be a precious object, it could be a blood vial, I guess. It could be anything, but it's a piece from a saint, and usually it's whatever saint that church is dedicated to.
Very interesting.
And a lot of people don't know that, but it is there. And if you ask your priest, he'll be able to point it out to you where it's at. It's usually under the altar or somewhere near the altar. And, that
probably hidden away.
Well, you can't get to it. I mean, it's...
Also, the priest is just going to point.
No, it's in the floor. It's in the floor.
I gotcha.
And then, they also used to take and say a saint would die, and they would do what I'm suggesting that they're doing now, but now they cover it up. But they used to leave holes, and people could come and touch the bones of saints and pray for miracles and pray for healings and various things. So what do you got for us, Karan?
Okay, let's see. So the first thing that I have is the demonic horrors of the Hauska Castle. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, guys. It is Houska, so Huska or Hauska.
Just make a choice and go with it.
This haunted fortress was built to contain a gateway to hell.
A gateway to hell?
This was written by Dana Matthews. So it states...
It's not Bobby Mackey's, then.
No, it's not Bobby Mackey's.
There's a lot of gateways to hell.
There are. Hell has a lot of entrances and, probably not a lot of exits.
Meet you at a crossroads.
If you're looking for a one-way trip to the underworld, there's no shortage of alleged gateways to hell.
Oh, we just talked about that.
Hidden all over the world. Kansas has the infamous Skull Cemetery. Greece has the Cape Matapan Caves. And Indiana has the Demon House until Ghost Adventurer Zach Baggins tore it down. And though each location has rich and fantastical history of unimaginable evil, none of them can compete with the terrifying background of the haunted Hauska Castle. Many of the world's so-called gateways to hell amount to nothing more than creepy settings with a really spooky urban legend attached to it. But then there's the Hauska Castle, a 762-year-old Gothic castle that was built to seal shut what locals believe to be real-life entrances to the underworld. Constructed in 1253 and 1278 in the Czech countryside, the location of the massive mansion was specifically chosen in order to seal up a mysterious bottomless pit where demonic creatures would enter our world after the sun went down. Terrifying stories about the pit and the monsters that would claw their way out of it at night, black-winged creatures that were half human and half animal, spread far and wide. Villagers were terrified to be out of their homes at night, and many of them would never venture anywhere close to that hole, even during the brightest daylight hours. Before construction on the Hellmouth Fortress began, all of the village's prisoners who had been sentenced to death were marched to the edge of the bottomless pit and condemned to a particularly sinister fate. Of course, they were tossed in. Any prisoners who managed to make their way back from the pit alive were forgiven for their transgressions and set free.
Are you sure they just didn't make a deal with the devil? I mean, it's the gateway to hell.
So, as you might imagine, that did not happen very often. The first man who was tied up and lowered into the pit began screaming in terror the moment he passed out of eyesight. When the frightened villagers hoisted him out of the darkness, they were horrified by what they saw. The prisoner, who had been a young man only minutes before, had aged more than 30 years while he was in the pit, and now had a full head of white hair. As frightening reports of demonic creatures attacking locals and dragging them into the bottomless pit began to grow in frequency, the villagers knew something needed to be done. Construction on the massive castle began with the hopes of sealing the gateway to hell for good. Once construction had been completed from the outside, Hauska Castle appeared to be just that, a run-of-the-mill fortress. But those who got closer to the castle could notice that there was something strange about the structure. The visual of the building appeared to have many windows, but upon further inspection, most of them are actually fake, and sturdy walls have been built behind the glass panes. As if the faux windows weren't strange enough, the castle was also built without fortifications, has no water source, was situated near no trading routes, and for years after it was completed, had no occupants. These conditions were exceedingly strange for a castle, but those who knew the truth about what lied below the building understood the true purpose: to hold back the monsters. Another clue to the true purpose of Hauska Castle can be found in the faded frescoes of the walls of the chapel, some of which were discovered to be the oldest in Europe. Dragons, a medieval symbol of evil, are being fought by St. Michael. Scenes of crucifixion are painted in stunning detail, and beautiful portrait of St. Christopher all adorn on the wall. But what's strangest is the painting of a left-handed, half-horse creature aiming a bow at a human. Referencing to pagan mythology were not something found on church walls in this part of the county. To boot, the left hand was associated with service to Satan, which had led many researchers to believe the centaur is a hint of an evil creature which lurked beneath the church. Even after the bottomless pit had been sealed, strange tales continued to cling to the castle over the years. Those who listened carefully to the lower floors at night could hear scratching, the winged creatures trying to claw their way out to the surface. Phantoms were seen walking the empty halls of the castle, and at one point, even the Nazis used the fortress as a secret headquarters. According to legends, the Nazis had chosen the Hauska Castle in order to harness the powers of hell for themselves. Today, mysterious phenomenon can still be witnessed inside the Hauska Castle's walls. In an effort to contain the demonic powers that were hidden below, the castle's chapel was built directly over top of the bottomless pit, and many visitors have heard what they describe as a chorus of screams coming from beneath the heavy floor.
Were you singing? Oh, sorry.
Hey. In the same area, numerous witnesses have described encountering a horrible creature that looks like a hybrid of a human, frog, and bulldog. That's a pretty creature.
A frog and a bulldog.
A human, frog, and a bulldog.
Ribbit rough. Rough ribbit.
So caretakers of the building have witnessed a headless spirit that stumbles through the courtyard. I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay. It's a headless spirit that stumbles through the courtyard. Streams of blood gushing from his decapitated body, whose identity has never managed to be uncovered. The current owner of the building... She laughs when
she reads Sleepy Hollow, too. Just so
yeah.
It's headless people. It makes her laugh.
It's just the whole thought of this headless spirit stumbling around, like feeling the walls.
Tripping over a froggy bulldog.
Exactly. The current owner of the building, I'm going to say this really wrong, Jaromir Simonik,
easy for you to say,
claims to have watched his drinking glass levitate off the table where he and his friends have gathered one evening, only for it to calmly lower itself and slide to the table's center. One of the most evil presences is regularly encountered in the hunting lodge. One evening, two guests, Zadina Zorvolaka,
It is Czech, so it's kind of Russian sounding,
and her husband were winding down in the room when they heard a loud thump on the floor. It was a thump. When Zadina turned to look at the source of the noise, she was frozen in fear as two featureless humanoid shadow figures approached her and whispered about having killed young girls. Over the years, many paranormal television series have visited the castle, all of which have concluded that it's haunted, and many paranormal teams continue to visit the fortress with the hopes of documenting the paranormal activity that's been plaguing the area for centuries. Let's just hope none of them manage to accidentally reopen that gate to hell.
So you want to buy that house? You want to buy the castle?
I do.
I bet you
do. I do love creepy houses.
It is very, very creepy.
It is very creepy, and it's also something that has been documented multiple times by multiple people over, years and years and years of this castle being built. And then before that, the bottomless pit.
One day we have to get to Europe and just go on a
yes,
ghost hunting trip. And then
yes, we do.
Just a ghost hunting trip where we get a guide who will lead us around and show us all these crazy places and we can judge for ourselves.
Yep, definitely.
So, in recent news, and when I say recent news, I am talking January 18th, 2017, it is announced that the CIA has released 13 million pages of declassified documents online, according to the BBC News US and Canada section.
Okay.
So the interesting part about this CIA release online is that these records include UFO sightings and psychic experiments from the Stargate program, which has long been of interest to conspiracy theorists. Now, when I talk about the Stargate program, I'm not talking about the TV series that I used to love to watch with Richard Dean Anderson, who used to be MacGyver. No. The Stargate program was a program that has been around in the CIA for years. And they didn't travel in wormholes ever. At least we don't think they did.
No wormholes.
The move came after lengthy efforts from Freedom of Information advocates and a lawsuit against the CIA. The full archive is made up of almost 800,000 files. They had previously only been accessible at the National Archives in Maryland. The trove includes the papers of Henry Kissinger, who served as Secretary of State under Presidents Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford, as well as several 100,000 pages of intelligence analysis and science research and development. Among the more unusual records and documents from the Stargate Project, which dealt with psychic powers and extrasensory perception. Those include records of testing on celebrity psychic Uri Geller in 1973, when he was already a well-established performer. Memos detail how Geller was able to partly replicate pictures drawn in another room with varying but sometimes precise accuracy, leading the researchers to write that he demonstrated his paranormal perceptual ability in a convincing and unambiguous manner. Other unusual records include a collection of reports of flying saucers and the recipe for invisible ink.
Ooh.
While much of the information has been technically publicly available since the mid-1990s, it has been very difficult to access. The records were only available on 4 physical computers located in the back of a library at the National Archives in Maryland, and they were only available between 9 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. each day.
Oh.
And so if you were a researcher and you wanted to get information out of these 800,000 files, you basically probably had to go in there and search for hours, because in those days, computers were nowhere near as fast as they are now.
Right.
And printing would be crazy amount of money. And that was the only way you could get this. So now it's available for anyone to access online. And if you so choose and have nothing better to read, you can go through all 13 million pages.
If you have insomnia, that would be a perfect solution there.
In 13 million pages, who's to say that the true assassin or the true events of the Kennedy assassination aren't listed in those?
Or where Jimmy Hoffa is located.
There could be some interesting material in that 13 million pages.
That's true. That's very true.
So now on to our talk about dogmen.
Yes, let's get on to the dogmen.
First of all, there's a difference between dogmen and werewolves.
Yeah.
So werewolves are creatures, just so people know out there, werewolves are creatures that are shapeshifters. So essentially they're humans who turn into animals, and skinwalkers they're, the Native American people knew skinwalkers. They could turn into bears or other animals or various other things, or even other humans. And they still believe in those today.
I was going to say, which is a very interesting point of just how long these sightings have happened.
And from culture to culture, not just, it's not a phenomenon that is unique to one individual country or one individual time period. It's many cultures that have these types of shapeshifters or werewolf-like beings, lycanthropy, if you will. But the dogman is not a werewolf. He is kind of like Bigfoot. He is what he is. He doesn't transform from man to beast and beast to man. He is a beast in and of the sense of what a beast would be. But you have an article about a werewolf sighting or a possible dogman sighting.
This one is werewolf photograph has Brazilian city on alert. This one is by Paul Seaburn. A photograph making the rounds is simply saying a photograph making the rounds is reported to be a werewolf caught by a security camera in Sildalia, a city in east central Brazil. I probably really messed that word up. Sorry, guys. The creature was allegedly seen by numerous witnesses, and the picture was accompanied with a warning to be careful because it might be a werewolf. Is it? Question mark. Brazil is one of the South American countries known for believing that a human can become a lobismem. Am I saying that wrong? Lobismem, or a werewolf, if he's the seventh male child of the same father and same mother. Some believe that the change takes place when the boy turns 13. Variations of this happening on a Friday during Lent or Friday the 13th during a full moon, and only for 2 hours from midnight to 2 a.m. Since this is not Lent and there hasn't been a Friday the 13th lately, the creature is probably not a 13-year-old going through one weird puberty. But that doesn't mean Brazilians don't believe it could still be a werewolf. Earlier this year in April, another picture appeared on the internet showing that some believed to be the body of a werewolf, Sasquatch, or Dogman found in northeast Brazil. The body allegedly disappeared quickly before the analysis could be performed, and no further news was ever reported, causing some to suspect a cover-up. In February of 2014, this video was taken by a night security camera of the alleged werewolf in a yard in the northeastern city of San Gonçalo dos Campos. Camera's owner claimed it ran past him, and he estimated the black hairy creature to be about 5 feet tall. There were no other witnesses and no additional sightings, but a curfew was imposed there a few days later. 2 attacks by a wolfman or dogman were reported in Brazil in 2008 and 2009. A woman in Sao Sepe told police she was attacked on January 28, 2009 by a big dog that stood on its hind legs and walked like a man. In 2008, police in Taya received numerous reports of half-man, half-wolf that was stealing sheep and breaking into houses. No definitive proof of a werewolf, dogman, or other cryptid was ever found in any of these cases, including the most recent one in Ceilândia.
I love your Spanish.
I know. It's so bad. I'm so sorry. That hasn't stopped Brazilians.
You speak great Brazilian.
That hasn't stopped Brazilians. Shut up.
So simple.
Shut up. That hasn't stopped Brazilians, and especially the residents of these towns, from being on their guard, especially around the 13-year-old boys.
So, werewolves have always been a fascination of mine. We've talked about, what's it better to be, a werewolf or a vampire?
Vampire. All day long, vampire.
You just want to live
Vampire.
forever. You just want to live forever. You know, why can't the werewolf live forever? I think they're supernatural. They should get that benefit too. They should be able to be a part man, part dog, part live forever. Why not?
Well, they regenerate really fast.
Yeah, they still die. They still have a life expectancy.
I'm sure they have a long life.
You know, that's the downfall. Like, you should be able to live forever unless a silver bullet goes through your heart. You get to live forever.
Oh my gosh.
So, you know, in other Dogman encounters, one of the most famous ones that I could find was the Michigan Dogman. And this is an article by Aaron Dimmick. In 1987, the song Legend of the Dogman hit the airwaves. It describes sightings and close encounters with a dog-human hybrid in northern Michigan. The song was written and performed by Steve Cook at WTCM Radio in Traverse City. Oh, it's Traverse City, Karen. That rhymes with T and stands for pool.
You need to cut that out.
All right, fine. I'm never going to get the Music Man down.
River City.
Oh, it's River City.
Yes.
Oh, well. Traverse City, whatever. All right, I came up with a creature of a dogman. No, I didn't. This is what he says. Okay, just so everybody knows it's not Will saying it. It's this guy named Cook. I came up with the creature of the dogman, a half man, a half dog, and developed it into a poem. It was kind of an amalgamation of all these creatures I'd heard of as a kid, and I heard these stories about, Cook said. It was first played on April Fool's Day as a joke song. And then we started to get calls from people saying, that's no joke, that's a real thing. That actually happened. People have seen this thing, Cook said. Dogman fever heated up as authorities investigated an attempted break-in into a cabin as the work of this creature. The only footprints they could find were of a dog. The sheriff's deputy believes to this day that it was the Dogman, Cook said. Cook later discovered that stories of dogmen date back thousands of years. Eyewitness reports indicate the creatures have a mix of human and dog-like features and are covered in black or gray fur. Dogmen have been seen all over Michigan, sticking close to the woods, going from all fours to walking on two legs. I'm a skeptic because of the way this all began. I watched it evolve over the years. But I do believe there are things out there that we cannot explain, Cook said. Over the years, the song has raised thousands of dollars for animal rescue charities. Cook has become the keeper of the legend, hosting a website and a Facebook page. There have been several books, movies, and TV shows about the Dogman. In 2007, a film surfaced, believed to be an old home movie that showed a Dogman attack. It had a lot of people convinced. However, it turned out to be a hoax, and Cook was pulling the strings once again. After nearly 30 years, the Dogman legend is going strong, scaring people around the world. WSM in Nashville plays it every Halloween. Armed Forces Radio in Germany and Japan play it every Halloween. It's got a worldwide following now, Cook said. You know, this Dogman, werewolf, whatever you want to call it, you know, apparently, just like the Bigfoot, it's been seen throughout history in one aspect or another. And is it true? Is it fiction? Is it the power of suggestion? You know, truly, as we talked about with the movie Split earlier, the power of suggestion can really do things to people. Just having someone put a thought in your mind, suddenly it transfers into this group mentality and everybody sees what they think they see and they all kind of see the same things, whether it's UFOs, Dogman, whatever. But is it real? Is it not real? Many people claim it is.
I was going to say, that's not for us to decide. It's very interesting that so many have viewed these creatures, and it's, you know, this isn't something that just happened. This has been going on for, you know, many, 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 many years. It's not something that, you know, has just sprung up. Now, with that being said, we can go back to, you know, the history of vampires. It all led back to one specific man, and then the legend grew, the stories grew, well,
that's specifically about Dracula, but if you look into creatures that were bloodthirsty, like the vampire demonic type creature, it goes back even further than that.
But that's what I was saying, though, is that, I mean, if you look back at some of these creatures, it usually comes from one particular area. And I don't know what the area would be for Dogman. Maybe Bigfoot, maybe, because Bigfoot is definitely something that has been around for a very long time, with sightings and people trying to hunt it or trying to figure out what the man-type beast was and that kind of thing. But
some people
I don't
think
know.
Bigfoot's an interdimensional being, and he lives in like Earth 2, for example.
Yeah, I mean, and I love ideas like that. I just wish somebody could get in a hurry and actually prove all of these kind of things.
They don't try to prove it by killing Bigfoot, because I think that
and
would be wrong.
I was going to say, and unfortunately,
there is a television show called Killing Bigfoot.
Yeah, and unfortunately, most of the places where these sightings happen are, unfortunately, rural, wooded areas, and that's prime hunting places. So that's what, those good old boys out there, that's what they enjoy doing, is going hunting. And unfortunately, if we ever do find Bigfoot, he'll probably be found because somebody shot him.
That's probably true. Well, before we get into Jody Cook and the interview, the conference from the Victory of Light Festival in Sharonville, Ohio, which we attended in November. So this is a recording from November from that event. And unfortunately for Jody and David, they kind of had some issues that day with their projector, so they weren't quite able to give the presentation I think that they really wanted to give. But it was still interesting nonetheless. But before we talk about that, one of the things that you'll hear them talk about on there is the Land Between the Lakes, which for people who aren't from the state of Kentucky is a national park area. It's a state park that crosses over from Kentucky into Tennessee. And there's two giant lakes essentially. And in between those is this heavily wooded area. And in this wooded area, supposedly was an attack of a dogman that killed this group of campers. And they talk about this phenomenon. And in fact, Jody Cook and David Jones will be hosting May 4th through the 7th of this year, if you're interested. They will be hosting an event at the Land Between the Lakes where they'll investigate the area where the supposed attack took place and actually do an investigation to try to find or prove that the dogman is there. And if you're interested, you can find more information about that event at the North American Dogman Project.com. I also have that listed on our Twitter page, the YouTube video. They have a YouTube station. And so you can find more information and hear David actually explain to you what they'll be doing out there at the Land Between the Lakes. And without further ado, we're going to turn this over to Jody Cook and David Jones.
Dogman site, which if people aren't familiar with the name Dogman, it's just a new name for basically for werewolf. Basically what it comes down to. The black dog is a code name that law enforcement and the DNR uses when they talk about the animal. Well, they're aware of it. They're aware of it. I mean, I wrote the DNR under the Freedom of Information Act about a couple of different sightings, and they denied my request for records. And it's against the law to deny information of requests, unless the documents are considered classified.
Can they use a tranquilizer dart?
Oh, I'm sure they could. I'm sure they can.
It's not strong enough to take it down. I mean,
Well, the thing is, we don't, how can I explain this? The DNR, they're aware of it. I mean, I was on an actual investigation of where two homies were killed. This is in Ryan Township. Okay. The night before, the owner of the residence kept hearing, howling of a wolf, followed by coyotes. Okay, so what happened is that the following morning he comes out, his corral is bent down, two of his ponies were taken out, were missing. One's head was completely taken off of it. The larger horse was still running in there, had a big gash going down its neck. There were large canine tracks that were in the corral there. The sheriff's department showed up. The sheriff's department called the DNR. DNR came up, talked with the sheriff's department. The DNR guy pulls a rake out of his truck and he breaks open the tracks. He destroyed evidence, physical evidence of this. And he said, no, nothing did this. Devil Wars first did this. Right in front of us. You know, so they know that there's something going on, and they're covering it up. We're aware of that.
The DNR is.
The Ohio Department of Natural Resources, which is wildlife people of Ohio.
Why are they covering it up?
It's an apex predator. To give you an idea, there's a place in Kentucky called Land Between the Lakes. Okay, for 70 years, they've had sightings of what they call the beast of Land Between the Lakes. It's a typical dogman sighting. There was known 5 killings that took place in that park. I mean, we had retired Kentucky State troopers that confirmed that there was something running in the park taking human lives. All right, there's 2 of them here I wanted to talk to you about. The first one happened in 1980. There was 2 police officers going to a convenience store. Everybody in this little town knows each other. The officers came in, grabbed a drink, didn't pay for them, went out and sat on the curb. They're drinking beer in uniform. Okay? The woman comes out and asks them, what's wrong? And they wouldn't look at her. All they kept saying is, I can't believe what I've seen. I can't believe what I've seen. Well, what the story is, what the officers ended up telling the woman was they were doing, a routine patrol into the park. They found a campsite. Okay, there was a trailer there. The trailer door was open. Light was on. There was a bloody handprint against the wall. There was blood all on the inside. They were able to see it. They saw what looked to be remains of a body part there. They get out of the vehicle. They find the mother, the father, and a small boy completely ripped apart inside the trailer, blood completely all over the place. Well, they know there was a little girl, but they couldn't find her because it was a dressing, so they knew there was a little girl. So they called for backup. The backup comes in. They do complete search of the area. They find the little girl enveloped in a tree, half eaten, about 40 yards away. Well, and this story has been going, like I said, since the 80s. Well, we got in contact with, 2 retired Kentucky State troopers that were there on site. He said it happened. And he said the state's covered it up. They know it's covered it up. There's killings that's taking place in this park. And they're blaming it on bears. They're blaming it on cougars. There's a second one, which, and this is a really good friend of mine. He's been doing investigations down here for a long time. He's standing in line, okay, waiting to go on a tour of the LBL area, okay, because they got bison and all this stuff down there. And 2 employees talking about, said, hey, did you hear about the killing that took place? I mean, right in front of everybody, like I'm talking to Dave, and you guys are standing there. And he ends up, talking to these guys about it. And what happened was there was a guy that went camping, told his family that he would be back on Sunday evening. Well, Sunday evening he showed up. Monday morning, he's not there. So his family called, said, listen, my son was supposed to be home. Did you go and see if he's okay? Well, they found this campsite. This tent was completely ripped up. There was blood all over the tent. He wasn't there. So they did a search party, and they found his body that Friday, completely naked, ripped apart, half eaten. His clothes were scattered in a tree. His family requested a report from the autopsy. Well, the family was not allowed to see their son. They were not allowed to see the autopsy. The autopsy was considered classified. They had a friend who was a doctor, and he went and asked the coroner, hey, what's going on? Can you tell me what's going on? This is his family member. He came back and told his family, you need to leave it alone. Don't even ask about it, just leave it alone. So they know that there's something going on. I mean, we've talked to people that were going down there dirt biking, and one guy stopped working on his bike. He said this thing came up out of the woods and grabbed him by the leg and pulled him into the woods, and his friends were helping him, pulling him out. So this is kind of stuff that's going on in the LBL area. Yeah.
How big do you like to locate it?
Well, we got tracks upstairs, okay, that we've got out of here in Ohio. And because of the size of the track, that we actually had the DNR look at them. And the DNR said, well, they look bare, but they're not their 4 toes. And we have a bear track, a 250-pound bear track right next to them, so you can see the difference in the size. They estimated this creature would be about 600 to 700 pounds, probably about 8 to 10 feet in height. And if it was a bear that big, I mean, it would have been noticed. I mean, they're not quiet animals. They go looking for food. But we found it in Germantown, Ohio. And what we found remains of 2 cows that were eaten. The sable hound doesn't have predators that's big enough to take a cow down, right? Coyotes can probably do it in a pack. Bears, but the only problem is, the 44 counties where black bear are all along the Pennsylvania and West Virginia border. Okay, we don't have to be black bear sightings too far out there. Every once in a while, excuse me, it does happen, but normally it doesn't. So if this was a bear, people would see it. I mean, we found remains, deer, dogs. We talked to people that had livestock that's been missing and things. So, and the history of it in Germantown goes back, to, I think it was like the 1970s, where it was known as the Butter Street Monster, where Butter Street in Germantown was the first street that people would actually see this thing on. So we've got some recordings. I can play those for you. You should be able to hear them. This is one recording that we got. There was an eyewitness that was walking their dog. It was a husband and wife. The dog noticed the animal first. They had a golden retriever, so it was a very big sized dog. And the dog just went kind of haywire, and they saw it. They saw the back of it. They thought it was a bear, is what their first impression of it was, the size of it. And it made a scream, made this horrible scream, she was saying. So we went out to the areas. This is a residential area. I'm not kidding when I tell you this. A residential area. We went out there for 3 nights. On the 3rd night, we ended up getting a recording. Okay? Went back, played the recording in a controlled environment, meaning we played other recordings, saying, which one was one here. And she said, this is what you heard. And she broke down and cried. It scared her that much. And actually, the DNR actually has a copy of this. And the DNR they have vocalizations of all the animals in Ohio, but they have most vocalizations of animals across the United States. They said they had nothing in their file that matched this. But this is the audio. But this is the audio that we got, and she confirmed that was the exact sound that this animal made.
How did you get that audio?
Huh?
How did you get that audio?
Yeah, actually, we were getting ready to leave. I mean, we spent 3 nights there, and it was like, we're not getting anything. And there's a girl that lives in an apartment complex behind there, actually got it on recording too. So as we were leaving, it hit. I mean, it screamed. We were up on the hill. This thing was down along the roadway. And then we were able to, catch it on the last part when it was screaming. No, it was wooded area. But when we went down where it was on the road right there. And see, there's a road that goes, y'all know where Lunkin Airfield is, right? That's where it was. There's an apartment complex called, it used to be Old Spindle Hill. Okay. Huh? Yeah. And there's a road that runs right along the back there of the condominiums where the airport is. And that's right there where it was, where they got it at. Where she actually seen it. And she confirmed that was the actual vocalization. Because like you said, when you do something like that, you do it in a control environment, you do other vocalizations, which one was it that you heard? And they said that's exactly what it was.
Does it seem to be like a dawn or dusk or nighttime thing?
Sightings? This was about 12:30 on a Sunday night when we actually got that one.
Typically, you do sightings or?
No, believe it or not, there are more sightings during the day than they are at night. We have pictures on here. There was a guy in Wisconsin who was walking his dog, and his dog noticed at first that it was hanging along the wood line, and what it was doing was watching kids get off the bus. And he got a picture of his on a cell phone. He saw it twice. He got 2 really good, decent pictures of it from the cell phone. So, like I said, a lot of the sightings that we're getting are all during the day sightings. or, we're doing a day sightings. I say it's more something like, about maybe 60-40, 60 being day, 40 being night,
You said that Dogman is more or less a new name for werewolf.
Mhm. Now, typically, what people kind of get confused, okay, you have your Wendigo, okay, you're familiar with the Wendigo, it's Native American, it's their version of the devil, like Satan is our version of the devil. But the Wendigo is, in characteristics, is similar to a werewolf, okay, and appearance, and some depending on what tribe, okay, has nothing to do with Dogman. Skinwalker has nothing to do with Dogman. Skinwalker is nothing more than a human being putting on the skin of a bear, cougar, whatever, and they become that. Okay? But what people don't understand what's going on right now, we've talked with Native American tribes out in the Four Corners, and they'll sit and tell you, if I have a problem with that guy right there, over land, water, something, and tribal police or tribal council not going to be able to solve it, I'm going to call Skinwalker, and he's going to either come in, he's going to poison his livestock, he's going to burn his house down, or he's going to kill him. They're basically, right now in Native American culture today, they're hitmen. And the thing of it is that in most tribes, they don't even touch it as far as, law enforcement and stuff, because it's part of their culture. It's like arresting a priest or something. And it's the kind of stuff that's actually going on. And these are what these tribes are telling us. And they're right now, they're becoming more vindictive than what people consider them being long ago. They're, basically they're musicians or magic men is all what they are. So a lot of people get that confused with the Dogman and stuff. In my book, I wrote about the history of Dogman. When you look at Greek mythology, King Lycan was a human. Saint Christopher was a dog-headed man. You look at the old biblical scriptures of Saint Christopher, and you'll see a picture of him with a dog's head. And stuff, I have it in my book. And it goes to show how the Bible kind of changes, to kind of update things so people don't look at it. Yeah. So, but there's a lot of stuff that's still out there. I mean, you look at Egyptian mythology. You look at not only this Greek but Roman. All this stuff all through history talks about dog-headed men. Even the Native Americans even talk about it. So there's a big history of it. But when it comes to like the werewolf culture and things, like you go down to Louisiana, you'll find out that there's actually groups of people down that there's covenants of vampires and there are packs of werewolves where people actually think that they're werewolves and they don't get along with each other. And they have actually killed each other. I mean, it's typical like underworld. I'm not kidding you. I mean, when you go on the underground in Louisiana, that's exactly what's going on. You have two different groups down there that's like that. But it has nothing to do with Dogman. Transformation. That's what when you think of Dogman or werewolves, that's the first thing that comes to someone's mind. And if you sit there and think about it, it's impossible. Your body, your bone would have to be cartilage. It would literally kill someone in order, to change. These are flesh and blood creatures. There's so much information going through history. I mean, we got newspapers, articles, going back into the 1800s, talking about the beast with the dog's head, that we have on our website. I mean, we've got reports going back that far. People talking about it. Law enforcement's coming forward with that. I mean, we just had 2 Indianapolis police officers seen one up close. What from the Army, these guys, the Rangers in the military, Army Rangers, had a site that they talked about having. There's a big history of this. To me, there's something that's always been here, just like Bigfoot. Now, I've been doing Bigfoot research for 25 years, and I went back to look at a lot of my old reports that I got back from like the 80s and the 90s, where people talked about, this creature having a snout, high pointed ears, backward blades, things like that, like a dog, and I never thought about it because, we only knew about one sighting in Ohio, and that was Defiance in 1972. That made worldwide news of a werewolf sighting in Ohio. For a week, this thing was terrorizing the town, attacked 3 people. It killed livestock, and the police did not know how to even handle this thing. And that case made worldwide news. Then you have the Beast of Bray Road. People are familiar with that. The Michigan Dogman, the Shenango Valley Werewolf in Pennsylvania, the Beast of Land Between the Lakes, in Kentucky. Actually, next week we're shooting a pilot for a show on the subject. So it's going to be good because now we're going to actually have a series that's going to talk about the subject, go to different areas, different states, and talk about the sightings that's going on in their state. Yes, sir.
I see there being like 3 possibilities, not just for the dog man, but for Bigfoot and reptilian creatures and lizard-like creatures. I've watched all. These are either things that have always been here and aren't reproducing to the point, even if they're successful predators, are not reproducing to the point where everybody sees them. So they're either they've always been here, they are illegal immigrants from the cosmos, or they're government experiments on the right. And I've heard about actually Men in Black not only dealing with UFO interactions, but also with reptilian interactions. They will come and say, you don't want to tell anybody. And why is that? I mean, it's the government's job to protect us.
Well, the thing of it is, I'll say this part and then I'll get back to you. Our government says some things that we're naive, we're stupid, and, the minute they say UFOs exist, we're all going to go crazy. No. Okay? Barack Obama can get on TV tonight and say aliens exist. We have bodies, we have craft. They've been visiting on the planet. Our astronauts have seen them. So far, they haven't been hostile. But if anything happens, we'll protect our species. Okay, fine. You know what? You're going to talk about it a little bit with your family. Tomorrow morning, you're going to get up. You're going to go to church. You're going to still go to your family's house, to have fried chicken and baked beans. You're still going to go Christmas shopping. You're still going to do things with kids. Your life's not going to change. Okay, because deep back in your mind, okay, you already know that common sense tells you we are not the only species around. Okay, there's somebody else out there. Okay, if we're the only species in existence, that's a cruel joke to God. That's the way I look at it. Okay, so there's definitely other species out there. Okay, but the thing of it is, you're not going to go stupid. You're not going to go crazy. You're going to have a few people standing out there with signs. It's the end of the world. Okay, you got something, and this is how our political system in this country works. You got something to sit there and talk about for 2 weeks until they come up with something else. Okay, and then it's over with. And that's how it is, and that's how it's done. Okay, but when it comes to reptilians and stuff that you're talking about, well, things you want to look at, and if you never heard of this, look it up. It's called hollow earth theory. That inside our planet, there's another environment with other creatures, people, and things like that. Okay, that maybe what the creatures that Mothman, reptilians, dogmen, Bigfoot, are creatures that belong, that live in this. You look at UFOs. 90% of every single UFO sighting has been over the water. Okay, so they're probably in our lakes, in our oceans. They were probably here before we were. Okay, they're probably not coming from another planet. Now, when Katrina happened, okay, I did 20 years in the Army, okay, I did a little bit of time with Blackwater, okay, I served in Iraq, I got out, I had some friends that were still with Blackwater, when Katrina happened. And these guys are telling me that the one reason why they took guns away from the civilians had nothing to do with violation of the Second Amendment is that they were having issues with these reptilians that were coming out of the ground because of the flood, the water, and what it was in, they were coming up. And they were having issues with them. And God forbid a civilian tagged one and moosed out a hole. That was the reason why they took the guns.
Well, why don't they want us to know about these things? If they're not
Okay,
creating
well, the
them.
thing of it is, okay, here's a government that's been lying to you, okay, for over 60 years about the existence of UFOs and all this other stuff. So are you going to believe them when they sit and tell you that don't worry about it, we'll protect you? 9 times out of 10, our government's working with them, saying, listen, yeah, you can go in and duck, do whatever experiment you want to do on our people. Just don't go haywire over it. But in return, give us something to deal with our military, our weaponry, maybe cure for cancer, maybe, space travel, warp drive, or whatever. Okay? You give us that, you go pick up whoever the hell you want. Okay? And I can see our government doing it. I can honestly see our government doing it.
Or some rogue element of
Or
our
some
government.
rogue element of the government.
Yeah.
Okay? Or a rogue government or something like that. So that's why. Because, like I said, they just think we're all stupid people.
Are they afraid that?
Huh?
Are they afraid people will panic? It'll cause a national panic?
People wouldn't be able to handle.
No,
Let's say if we walk in and there's
Right.
a dog man on a chain and some guy brings it in, it's not even supposed to exist.
Right, that's
It's
what
a
I'm
very,
saying.
I mean, that would really.
Well,
There's also religious conflict.
It really is coming, but
Exactly.
the biggest thing is, the biggest thing is, the human species cannot coexist with other species. Plain and simple. Okay? We can't coexist. How many species have we taken off the face of the earth that can never come back? Okay, if there's another species of human, that's just even makes it worse. Okay? We just can't coexist. Okay, give you a perfect example. Let's say mermaids exist. Okay, just throw it out there. Mermaids exist. Okay, so we find out where they're spawning at and breeding and all that stuff is where they do all the big crab catching up like on dead race, catching stuff. Let's say they do that. Well, what's going to happen? They're going to stop the crabbing industry. Okay, so money's going to be lost, jobs going to be lost, people are going to lose their home. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to go kill that species off because our species is priority. Okay? Even though it's protected by the government. Okay? People are going to say, screw it, I'm going to go kill it off because I'm not going to lose my house. I'm not going to take food out of my food,
Kind of like the ranchers out west
yeah,
of the
like,
wolves.
yeah, with the wolves and stuff like that. They handle it on their own. Same thing with the logging industry. Okay? Logging industry has been stopped because they found it out. One little bitty out. Okay, so where's Bigfoot live? He lives in the woods. Where's Dogman live? He lives in the woods. So if they say he exists, then they have to have protected ground. Okay, and that's the forest. Okay, and then that stopped, logging. When you stop logging, people's jobs are affected, houses aren't going to be built. I mean, it's a crazy scenario, but that's why, that's the only reason why they've never been proven to exist. Because of that one whole thing. It's a money issue. That's what it comes down to. And second is that the human species just cannot coexist with another species. We can't coexist with ourselves.
Are you of the opinion that possibly some of these cryptoid creatures have supernatural powers?
I know.
Because there's a lot of animals around the world. There's some that have infrared vision. There's some that can see in the dark. There's some that can
Here's
glow.
the thing. I don't believe in like supernatural powers and stuff like that. Like if I take Bigfoot, for example, Bigfoot has common sense. I don't think he has intelligence. Okay, he has common sense. He knows not to cross that road because of the cars. He knows he sees human to go away. The dog man, he's intelligent. He's a problem solver. He may not have common sense. Okay, but the thing of it is, most people don't. Either you have intelligence or you have common sense. And one thing I learned 20 years in the Army, common sense saves your life, intelligence gets you killed. Plain and simple. Okay? So, and that's why when you look at different species, like maybe the Mothman. I don't think the Mothman, has either or. I just think that's a stupid cryptid. Same thing like Chupacabra. But, you know, it just is, it's intelligence over, you know, I think they can sense things better than, you know, most animals can. You know, it's like a dog. They did this experiment. Okay, they took 30 dog owners. Okay, and they had a camera sitting in the house with the dog. They had a camera on the owner that was leaving. Most of these owners were up to 25, 30 miles away. The minute those owners left for work, that dog ran through the window waiting for the owner to come home. Every single one of them. So those dogs were able to know that their owner was on their way home. And this stuff, they sense that up to 25 miles. So these creatures are probably the same way. They can probably sense things, you know, to that effect. You know. Anybody else have any questions? Yes?
Have you ever thought that Dogman is a woman?
Dogman be a woman? Yeah, actually, I'll tell you a really good story with a female dogman. Okay? There was a guy, 68 years old, was up in Akron, Ohio. He was hunting turkeys. I can't remember there being Thanksgiving. So he hears the turkeys. He's in the wood line. He goes out the wood line and goes into an opening. When he comes out into an opening, 5 of them came up on him. He said 5 of them did. Okay, surrounded him. Not once did he say dog, man, werewolves, or anything. He just say 5 dogs walking on 2 legs came up to him. 4 of them were male. The 1 was a female. Because he said, how I knew this because I was able to see the genitalia on the male. He said they were very human looking more than they were dog looking. But the one that was showing the aggression was the smaller female, because he was able to see, you know, the nipples. But she was the one that was showing the aggression towards him the whole time, not the males. So therefore, she was the apex of the pack. So, but that's the only story that we've got with the actual known female, you know, in there. Now, the Patterson film, are you all familiar with that? The 1968 Bigfoot film. Look it up. Look up the Patterson film, 1968. Okay? It's the best film of Bigfoot, and it's a female because she has breasts. Okay? And I mean, it's a really good film. Really awesome film. And the thing about it, no, I'm sorry, it was 1967. I'll tell you how good it was, how good that creature is. 1968 is when Planet of the Apes came out. Okay? And Walt Disney and Universal Studios both said in 1968, a year after that film was made, they said it would cost about $50,000 to reproduce that whole scene. In 1968, $50,000 was like $1 million at that time. Okay? So it guys to tell you how real that film is. So yeah, and that was a female. So I don't know. I mean, you know, being married, I'd rather go up against a male than a female. I'm sorry, female than me. Yeah.
That's all the time we have for this episode. As always, we thank you for listening to The Dragon's Nest. Please follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dragon's Nest PC. That's Dragons with an S, Nest PC for podcast. We are on YouTube, so please like, subscribe, and hit that bell. You can listen and follow us on your favorite podcast platforms such as Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google, iTunes, and at our host site, SoundCloud. To search for us, just search The Dragon's Nest. That's the THE, Dragons with an S, Nest. If you would like to share a story with us or have ideas you'd like to hear in a future show, please send an email to thedragonsnest@outlook.com or call and leave us your story at 513-549-3049. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time
inside the Dragon's Nest.